Yes, of course, Protea Hotel by Marriott. As usual, we are here to remind you that if, in case you need a luxury in your life, that is the place to be. Protea Hotel by Marriott and Teve, they do have buffets, lunch, dinner, as well as breakfast. They have a stay-in case you want to sleep at the hotel, as well as a swimming pool and a fully fledged health club. Please visit it and make sure that you enjoy the money that you are working hard for. My name is Karen Wamani. You're welcome to Issues at Hand. Of course, we are discussing the issues that are at hand. There are a number of them, and we get into social, economical, political, as well as communal, the things that affect us personally. We also go economical, like I said. We look at the money, we look at tariffs, we look at which ministry got which amounts of money and how is it going to be spent. And of course, we have different groups under those ministries, like the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development. We do have persons with disabilities under this group, and today that is where the discussion will be going. A brief background is that these people face a lot of challenges when it comes to living in society, and yet they do have some basic rights that they must have as people, as Ugandans as well. And of course, we've seen complaints from them that their inclusion in society is very, very limited, and we want to understand why, and that is why I do have a guest in studio, and we will be discussing this shortly. But remember to follow us on our social media platforms. That's at Church of Uganda Family TV on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, as well as our YouTube that has videos of this content that we do right here. Of course, my guest is called Mr. David Nangosi. Have I pronounced that right?
Yeah.
Okay, he is the Human Resource Manager for the National Union of Disabled Persons of Uganda. He's going to tell us give us a brief background about what this NUDIPU does, and that is the short form for what I just mentioned. Let's start with an introduction from him. You're welcome. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you. I just want to correct you.
Okay.
I'm not the Human Resource Manager at NUDIPU, but I'm the Program Officer.
You are the Program Officer. NUDIPU. Okay.
And by way of names, just would like to confirm that I am David Nangosi with the portfolio of the Program Officer working for National Union of Disabled Persons of Uganda, NUDIPU. NUDIPU is basically an umbrella organization for all disability categories in this country, and we started way back in 1987. That is before I was born, incidentally.
Wow.
So we basically strive to see that there is a just and fair society where persons with disabilities in this country live in, and we strive to do this by ensuring that the rights of persons with disabilities are promoted, they are protected. Of course, when we talk about persons with disabilities, there are quite several categories of these persons with disabilities. We are talking about persons with physical impairments. You call them persons with physical disabilities. Those are persons who use wheelchairs. Those are persons who do not have limbs. Those are persons who have one limb. Those are persons that you find in society are using walking sticks like mine. You'll see them with adjusted shoes like mine. Those are persons with physical disabilities. But we also have persons with visual impairments. You call them the blind.
Yes.
That's another disability category. They do not totally see. We have those that partially see. Those two are persons with disabilities. We also have persons with mental disabilities, those with intellectual and psychosocial disabilities. Those are also under persons with disabilities, but we also have the little persons or persons of little stature. We also have persons with albinism.
Yes, yes.
Persons with cerebral palsy, among others. So when we're talking about persons with disabilities, those are some of the categories we as NUDIPU strive to see that there is a just and fair society where these persons with disabilities should live in. But it must be noted that according to the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, disability is an evolving concept. So it means today we recognize the disability categories that I have just noted, but there are also other disability categories that may emerge in the future because of the different causes that lead to disability. Okay. Hence disability being an evolving concept. So for us as NUDIPU, we strive to ensure that there is dignity for all these disability categories. We are situated on Bukoto Chisas Road. We work with organizations of persons with disabilities in this country. They are called OPDs. Every disability category that I have mentioned has its own organization.
So the National Union is a government
entity? The National Union is not a government organization. It is a non-governmental organization. Non-government organization that strives basically to see that there is a just and fair society where these persons' abilities live in.
Okay.
We also work with the district unions of persons with disabilities. In every district, we have the district structures. It is these structures that help NUDIPU to further the discussion on disability inclusion at the district level with district officers, with non-state actors at the district level, and also with private sector at the district level. So in brief, that is NUDIPU. In November this year, we shall be celebrating our 36 years of existence.
Great. Of course, in these 36 years, I'm sure you had a vision. Starting out, you weren't there, but they had a vision. Sure. And of course, this vision had some objectives. So I'd like to understand, what were the objectives? Have you achieved? How far is your achievement as an organization, just before we get to the challenges?
Of course, as an organization, we had a number of objectives. And it is these objectives that are still driving our agenda. One of the objectives for our organization is to ensure that there is enabling legal and policy framework that supports the day-to-day development, that supports persons with disabilities across in all sectors at the national and at the local level. Today we have enabling frameworks like Persons with Disabilities Act 2020. We have the Mental Health Act 2019. We have the Building Control Act 2013. We also have other mainstream laws and policies that have an element or have elements or provisions that foster disability inclusion. We have the Employment Act 2006, among others, notwithstanding the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda, 1995, as amended under Article 32, it emphatically talks about affirmative action for persons with disabilities, among other marginalized persons. But persons with disabilities comes out very emphatically. And we have also gone further under Article 35 to see that the rights of persons with disabilities are well stipulated therein. And it's as a result of Article 35 that we see other specific laws that guarantee the respect and promotion and protection of the rights of persons with disabilities coming on board. And that's why we have seen the Persons with Disabilities Act 2020 being enacted in that regard. We have the National Policy on Disability that again has come into play to give further the guidance on promoting disability inclusion. So one of our aims or one of our objectives was to ensure that this country has an enabling framework that respects, that promotes, that protects the rights of persons with disabilities. We have worked very closely with the state and other non-state actors to realize the enabling framework for the legal and policy framework that guarantees the respect and promotion of the rights of persons with disabilities in this country. And then the other aspect, you know, persons with disabilities in this country, if you follow the history, they have been subjected to what we call the traditional model or the charity model. The traditional model or the charity model basically not or treats persons with disabilities as victims of charity. It treats persons with disabilities as useless people. It looks at persons with disabilities as people who should not be consulted. It basically looks at persons with disabilities who should be given all the time. The charity model was associated so much in the then days of Idi Amin. You remember when they were loaded on a truck and they went and you remember that history very well.
Yes.
So as NUDIPU, we came on board to making sure that we do away with that charity model by fostering sensitization campaigns in the public, by making sure that the public adopts the human rights model. As I do speak right now, we have made effort to sensitize different communities through our different programs to believe in the notion that disability is not inability.
Yes.
We have also gone ahead to create networks with state and non-state actors as a country, and that is one of the areas that comprised. That is one of the areas actually that led to our formation. We wanted to strengthen partnerships with other actors in order to promote disability inclusion. Right now, we have strengthened partnerships with state. We have some focal point persons in different ministries, departments, and agencies. We also have strengthened partnerships with non-state actors. I mean the different civil society organizations working in this country on particular issues. We engage from time to time with the Ghana National NGO Forum. We also engage with other civil society actors to making sure that they don't leave persons with disabilities behind.
Let's first focus on the Ministry of Gender,
Yes.
Labour and Social Development. You are working with all these CSOs, NGOs, as well as government-oriented authorities. But what is the relationship with you guys and Ministry of Gender? Because that is the ministry that overlooks the issues of persons with disabilities.
Yes, I want to agree with you that Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development is the line ministry for persons with disabilities in this country. I want to say that our relationship is good and we do not have any bad relationship with the Ministry of Gender. We continue to engage with them.
That's good.
Especially in the promotion and protection of the rights of persons with disabilities. We came up with the National Action Plan to implement the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities collaboratively with the Ministry of Gender. We have been working closely with the Ministry of Gender to come up with the Global Disability Summit commitments that would breathe life into the promotion and protection of the rights of persons with disabilities. The Global Disability Summit is basically one of the initiatives that has come on board to leverage the promotion and protection of the rights of persons with disabilities as enshrined in the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. We collaborated with them. In 2018, they came up with, they led other ministries, departments, and agencies, and as a country, we came up with the Global Disability Summit commitments. In 2022, we also worked very closely with the Ministry of Gender to come up with commitments to further leverage the promotion and protection of rights of persons with disabilities. And as of now, we have closely again worked with the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development to submit the status of, to submit the state report to the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities on the status of the promotion and protection of the rights of persons with disabilities.
Okay.
So all these are indicators that NUDIPU is very closely working with Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development and also with other government entities. There is no way we can do away with Ministry of Gender.
That's true. Okay, before we get to the human rights, the basic human rights themselves, because of course we are talking about people with disabilities and we cannot underlook that factor. I would like to first begin with the challenges and how far organizations like yours have gone in making sure that these challenges are solved. Some of them are accessibility to public facilities. We have accessibility to public facilities and physical environment, inclusion, social, okay, let me call it social exclusion. You called it inclusion because Of course, right now it's getting better, but they faced a very big challenge according to the history of social inclusion as well as absence of assistive technology. We are seeing other countries coming up with very, very, very vital technology that can help persons with disabilities. I'm not seeing that in Uganda too much. I don't know if you agree with me on that. Lastly, the barriers in healthcare and at the workplace. But we'll start with technology. Do you think that Uganda has done enough to make sure that persons with disabilities have the right technology to assist them?
First of all, I want to note very emphatically that Uganda is one of the countries to have registered, to have embraced progressive realization in the promotion and protection of the rights of persons with disabilities. There have been several efforts to guarantee the rights of persons with disabilities as enshrined in this legal enactments in the Acts of Parliament, as enshrined in policies, as also enshrined in a principal law, that's the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda. Those efforts notwithstanding, persons with disabilities in this country still are faced with a number of challenges, as you did note. In the area of technology, one of the challenges that we have as a country is that we do not have any enabling framework that guarantees access to inclusive technologies for persons with disabilities. In the Global Disability Summit of 2018, the government of Uganda committed in London that it will come up with an inclusive ICTs policy for persons with disabilities.
Yes.
This is yet to come to pass. Where there is no enabling framework, it quite makes it difficult for persons with disabilities to access inclusive ICTs. Of course, we note that government has gone ahead to ratify the Marrakesh Treaty that facilitates access to published works by persons with disabilities, especially those with visual impairments, to access the different published works, making sure that these works are accessible by them. But for us to do that, we must have an ICTs policy for persons with disabilities. It may not be very specific for persons with disabilities, but if we have a national inclusive ICTs policy where issues of persons with disabilities are catered for therein, I think for us it sorts us as persons with disabilities. That is one. And then secondly, you talked about the health sector.
Just before we get to the health sector, on technology, you said in 2018, the government pledged.
Yes.
And this is like about 5 years later.
Sure.
You're trying to say there's nothing from them up to now.
Well, according to what I have learned, there were efforts to come up with the ICTs for disability policy, but along the way, I seem to have noted that government had a paradigm shift and they thwarted the idea of coming up with a specific disability policy. Instead, government preferred to come up with the national inclusive ICTs policy where issues of persons with disabilities would be catered therein, would be put therein. But as of now, we note that we are not seeing the progress of this policy. And that means it is going to be very difficult for us to continue embracing inclusive ICTs as persons with disabilities, persons with visual impairments, among others. We have different websites in this country that are not accessible to persons with disabilities, especially persons with visual impairments. So we need an inclusive ICTs national policy that can embrace all the disability needs. As persons with disabilities, we have several needs and we have unique needs. Every disability category has a unique need.
Very true.
But where there is an enabling framework, it facilitates inclusion.
But we have
you
all
get
these laws already. We have Article
inclusion.
35, we have the Constitution 1995, we have PWDS Act 2020.
When it comes to ICTs, we need to unpack what is that persons with disabilities require in the area of ICTs. The Persons with Disabilities Act, of course, it does not promote discrimination. It promotes non-discrimination of persons with disabilities, it even provides for affirmative action. But in the area of ICTs, and that's the importance of the law, we need to have that policy that unpacks the ICT, the issues of persons with disabilities in the area of ICTs. That is why we have different ministries, departments, and agencies of government, and it is the reason as to why we have UCC, we have Uganda Communications Commission. It is the reason as to why we have Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development, even when we have other ministry departments and agencies that also can plan for disability issues. It is the reason as to why we also are saying we need disability issues to be planned for by Ministry of Health, even when we have Ministry of Gender. So the point I'm trying to stress here is we need that specific policy which unpacks the challenges persons with disabilities face in the area of ICTs, which tries to provide a framework for persons with disabilities in this country to access ICTs on an equal basis with others, which regulate the day-to-day access to ICTs for persons with disabilities on an equal basis with others. That notwithstanding, I want to go to the area of health.
No, let's go to the area of health and barriers in the workplaces after a short break, but also to disagree with you a bit, because if you are saying that a policy should be enacted in the ICT sector, that means we shall have to enact one for the health, we shall have to enact one for workplaces, different policies, and this will cause confusion, in my opinion. Why don't you instead focus on the PWDS Act 2020 and force implementation of those laws that are already written? But just let's just go for a short break and return with the issues at hand. We're going to return with what we talked about, the health sector, the barriers to the workplaces, as the challenges facing that are being faced by the people with disabilities. Protea Hotel by Marriott is our sponsor. Stay with us. We will be right back. We're powered by Protea Hotel by Marriott Entebbe. Comfort and luxury at its best, like you had it. Moving on to the discussion of today, which is the persons with disabilities. We want to look at the national budget inclusion of these special people, as well as, of course, their rights, their basic needs, and how exactly it is going right now. Remember that they have their rights in Article 35. We have the Constitution of the 1995 Constitution of Uganda, and of course PWDS Act 2020. All these are laws that govern the people with disabilities, but are the laws working is what we are trying to look at. Of course, remember that they have basic rights, and some of them are a right to education, a right to accessibility, a right to life, a right to nationality, a right to access to justice, a right to they have liberty to movement, they have a right to privacy, they have a right to access information, and of course they have a right to work and employment, as well as access to health. Of course, these PWDs have been a sector of interest when it comes to Uganda, because of course there are very many complaints that some of them are still living in abject poverty, and of course we saw Genome 7 coming out to say these people should think about job creating jobs for themselves, and of course we are just trying to see how that is going to work out. In studio with me is Mr. David Nangosi, the Programs Officer for the National Union for Disabled Persons of Uganda, and we are still having our discussion. We left off at a place where you were suggesting that a new policy be enacted for persons with disability to deal with ICT or to get access to technology. And I was saying, if we get a policy like that, won't we need policies for health, policies for education, policies for everything in the end?
Well, thank you very much for that. I still will not follow on your side.
Okay. It's okay to disagree.
I still won't fall on your side. I think, first of all, it is on the agenda of government. Government having discovered the mischief in the area of promoting inclusive ICTs for persons with disabilities. It could be because these issues of persons with disabilities, even in the current national policy, I think it must be there for ICTs are not therein, and so it becomes quite very difficult for us to regulate ICT services for persons with disabilities. So that mischief can be addressed if we have that policy that very emphatically talks about disability inclusion in the area of ICTs.
Okay.
Going back to the area of inclusive health, I still would like to note that this is one of the areas that we as a country, when we ratified the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities in 2008 together with its optional protocol, it is one area that we as a country promoted to respect and protect. That is respecting and promoting the rights of persons with disabilities in the area of inclusive health.
Okay.
Of course, along the way, I must note that government has come up with some efforts in promoting inclusive health for persons with disabilities, but we still take note that there are challenges that persons with disabilities face in this area. In this country, the issue of orthopedic workshops is a big issue. Today you are seeing me with my adjusted shoe. Yes. Because of the existence of an orthopedic workshop in Mulago, where I go and make my shoe from, where from time to time I go and my shoe is adjusted. The walking stick that you are seeing is as a result of that. One of the challenges that we face in this country in the area of inclusive health is the non-functionality of the different orthopedic workshops in this country.
They don't function? They are there, but they don't function.
Do not function. We only have Mulago Orthopedic Workshop currently that is fairly good to respond to the orthopedic needs of persons with disabilities. You go to Mbale, where I come from, the orthopedic workshop is not functioning. You go to Jinja, is it there? You go to other regional offices. So Uganda has only one functioning orthopedic. Uganda is supposed to have 16 orthopedic workshops currently, as I was informed by Ministry of Health. But currently, we only have Mulago Orthopedic Workshop that is fairly good. And this I must be on record. Even when it is fairly good, it is not well stocked. The issue of orthopedic workshops affects persons with disabilities day by day because we need orthopedic services. That is where we can get wheelchairs. Yes. That is where we can get artificial limbs. That is where we can get adjustable shoes, among others. The other aspect relates to essential medicines. Persons with disabilities have unique needs, and every disability category requires unique attention. Just a bit, before we get to the medicine part, the orthopedics, do you incur any costs or is it covered by the government? Unfortunately, we incur costs to buy these devices. So they are not free of charge. Interesting. The adjusted shoe that you're seeing now with me, I incur an expense time to time, from time to time, to improve on my mobility. So going back to... Is it affordable? I'm sorry, but... no, you're right to ask those questions. Yeah, is it affordable for all persons with disabilities? It is not affordable for persons with disabilities because most persons with disabilities, I must note that they are informal sector, and most persons with disabilities do not have money, so they cannot afford some of these services. Now me as David Nangosi, I can afford. I can afford. But so a number of persons with disabilities cannot afford this. And that's why we as NUDIPU, we are so much in favor of government revitalizing the functionality of orthopedic workshops in this country. Because the workshops play a critical role in enhancing the mobility of persons with disabilities. They play a critical role in rehabilitating a person with disability. And this is as far as Article 26 of the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities on Rehabilitation and Habilitation is concerned. But if the orthopedic workshops are in a dilapidating state, as we can see now, it can't facilitate the rehabilitation of a person with disability. Quite very challenging. On a number of occasions, the President of the Republic of Uganda has actually talked about this particular issue. And I remember in the International Day for Persons with Disabilities, I think 2021, the President as well issued a directive to Ministry of Health to making sure that this particular area is worked on. But I have seen no efforts in this area. So as persons with disabilities, we are so much challenged to access the various orthopedic services. And remember, we are not only in one place in this country. We are not only in Kampala.
Exactly.
We are in every
district the majority
in the country.
The majority is out of Kampala.
And I forgot at the beginning, I should have noted that currently, according to the 2014 population census report, we are 12.4% of the total population. This population is not only in Wakiso, Kampala, it is in the different areas of Uganda. And this number should have increased as of now because of the different causes that lead to disability. Accidents being one of them. And right now, it is a major cause. People's hands being cut off, people's legs being amputated. At the end of it all, one joins the club of disability. But where do we go to rehabilitate yourself? You will go to an orthopedic workshop to get an adjusted shoe, to get an artificial limb. But if the orthopedic workshops are not functional, where else can you go for rescue?
But are the medicines free?
This is one of the big areas that is affecting persons with disabilities in this country. We go to the area of essential medicines for persons with disabilities.
Are they free?
First of all, I noted that every disability category has a unique need. And at the beginning, I did highlight the different disability categories. We have persons with mental disabilities, those intellectual and psychosocial disabilities. Persons with psychosocial disabilities, persons with epilepsy require some essential medicine, among others. These medicines help them from time to time so that they do not fall into relapses. But we have discovered that these medicines are not spread out in the various health facilities in this country. The Kabam zones, among others. They are not spread out in the various health facilities in this country. The health center 3s, the health center 4s. These medicines are not there. Remember a situation when we went into lockdown. It wasn't the health situation of persons with disabilities in the country. Most of them went into relapses because of these drugs not being there. But the other aspect that we have had persons with psychosocial disabilities, persons with mental and neurological conditions cry out is some of these drugs are also of long ago. They are actually calling upon government to provide modern drugs. Why am I saying they are of long? Well, they're still relevant, but they do not enable persons with mental and neurological conditions to independently live. They have side effects. They do not promote independent living. I was in a meeting last week at Sportsview Hotel, and persons with mental disabilities noted that the drugs they are using currently have not been reviewed by government. They need modern drugs that can enable them not go through those side effects. So this is one of the things that we as NUDIPU, we are calling for. Government needs to come up with modern drugs that can support persons' mental and neurological conditions. And we need these drugs to be spread in the different health facilities across the country, the health center 3s, the health center 4s, because that is where a local person with disability is situated. It is going to be very difficult for a family member looking after this person with disability to move from his village, from that sub-county to the district. But when these drugs are they are spread close, they are spread in different health centers, this will going to enable the easy access by persons with disabilities. Then the other aspect, of course, relates to, of course, now that requires Ministry of Health to revise the essential drugs list.
Yes.
And for us as persons with disabilities, we are there, we are able to engage with them so that we advise each other on what are the essential medicines that can enable the welfare, the health care of persons with disabilities from time to time. But of course, we have noted still that access, the physical inaccessible environment, it also continues to be challenging for persons with disabilities. When you go to some of these health facilities, they are not enabled with ramps. And now we persons with disabilities, especially those with physical disabilities, we struggle so much to access some of these health facilities. But also we have our persons with albinism. The sunscreens, these are not spread out in these health facilities. It has been noted that very few persons with disabilities exceed the age of 45 years because most of them do contract cancer. But if we have these services extended closer to them in the different health facilities, then it enables the lifespan of these persons with disabilities, especially persons with albinism, to live longer. We also have to talk about the negative attitude. Attitude is a little thing that counts but makes a big difference. We need the different health practitioners to embrace positive attitude when they are handling persons with disabilities. The challenge that we are facing right now is when a woman with disability is going to the labor, is in labor pains, is going to the maternity ward, all that. We are being asked, she's being asked, they are being asked, even you, how did you get pregnant? You see, persons with disabilities are supposed to also enjoy their health reproductive rights. They are supposed also to enjoy their rights on an equal basis with others. It does not mean that me having a disability, it has affected my right to make a family, my right to get a partner and produce. It is the reason as to why we emphasize and continue to emphasize that disability is not inability.
Yes.
And there is a hidden ability in disability. So what we need is to be facilitated. What we need is to be enabled. We want an inclusive environment that actually promotes inclusion for all, including inclusion for we persons with disability. We want those beds, those maternity beds those beds in the different hospitals and maternity wards to be accessible to we persons with disabilities. If I am a woman who is a person of little stature, you get three
little
inches.
persons, yes.
I need to access that bed.
The washroom.
I need to access that bed like another woman without a disability.
Yeah.
But the bed should not be a hindrance to me, a woman with disability who is a little person or who is of little stature. Those beds are not accessible. And for us as NUDIPU, we are saying, yes, there are efforts, those bids are there. But let us also have those accessible bids that can be accessed by we persons with disabilities. This is the discourse that we as NUDIPU, we are fronting from time to time, because there is nothing for us without us. And that is our notion in disability movement.
Okay, briefly I want to, because these medicines as well, someone has got to afford them, even if they're at the health center 4 or 3, even local pharmacies, the person must be able to afford them.
Yes.
So I'm just asking myself, because poverty is another problem when it comes to people with disabilities. The reports are indicating that most of them are unable to afford these things. And we were seeing from the national budget of the financial year 2022 to 2023 had 16 billion shillings for persons with disabilities. Now this year 2023-2024, we have dropped down to 3.3 billion Uganda shillings. This money, how does it help the people with disabilities? Does it help some of them or some groups or circles anywhere to access some of these services, like health services? Does this money help you guys buy some of these drugs? Does it help the ladies who are pregnant? What exactly does the money, what is the nitty-gritty budget?
Thank you very much. I want to first of all again note that persons with disabilities have been living in abject poverty.
True.
And that means they have been at the periphery of accessing the different services in this country. One of the ways of removing persons from abject poverty was to introduce programs that can bridge this poverty gap. These programs that were introduced by government include, but not limited to, the special grant. It is also called the disability grant. This is the grant specifically for persons with disabilities. It means that persons with disabilities form groups and they access this grant at the district. It used to be at 2 million shillings for every district. I mean for every group of persons with disabilities in every district. But then government also introduced the national special grant, which again was intended to bridge the poverty gap among persons with disabilities. So I want to agree with you very emphatically that this budget has been at 16 billion shillings, but it has been reduced now to 3 billion shillings, as you did note. This is very dangerous. But you said, what is this meant for? This is meant for persons with abilities to form groups, to come up with a project in a particular group, and then you defend how this particular project is going to remove you from poverty, how this project is going to improve on your livelihood. Basically, the money is intended to improve the socio-economic well-being of a person with disability. So that has been the reason for the 16 billion shillings. But as we note now, of course, this has reduced, and for us as NUDIPU, we are so much concerned. We are concerned because the number of persons with disabilities in the country is increasing. As the number of persons with disabilities in the country increases, the needs of persons with disabilities also increase. So when the budget is reduced from 16 billions to 3 billion shillings, for us as persons working for persons with disabilities, it is a big concern. And this is one of the areas that continue to affect persons with disabilities in the country. How are you going to remove them from the abject poverty when the budget is being reduced from 16 to 3 billion shillings? How are you going to enable them to afford an adequate standard of living if you have reduced their budget? This government adopted the National Disability Inclusive Planning Guidelines, which is supposed to guide ministries, departments, and agencies of government on disability inclusive planning and budgeting. It must also be noted that there have been efforts by government to come up with what we call the gender and equity budgeting. And that again falls into Article 32 of the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda, which gave birth to Equal Opportunities Commission to redress the imbalances with these marginalized persons, including persons with disabilities. And the Public Finance Management Act 2015, when it came into play, it gave Equal Opportunities Commission the mandate to conduct gender and equity assessments of ministries, departments, and agencies of government and also local governments, by making sure that the budget framework papers, by making sure that the ministerial policy statements, they are gender and equity sensitive. Over time, we have noted, and recently, we NUDIPU, working closely with East Africa Center for Disability Law and Policy and Uganda Media Women, we conducted a desk review on how disability has been performing in gender and equity assessments. We discovered that disability has not been performing well. We sampled out the financial years 2019 up to 2022. We discovered that whereas the graph is increasing for persons, for other persons like the youth, like the children, persons with disabilities inclusion in the national budgets, in the plans and budgets of ministries, departments, and agencies of government is stagnating. What did the desk review note? The desk review noted that inclusion of persons with disabilities in the period 2019 to 2022 is at 30%. Yesterday, we were informed by Equal Opportunities Commission that from 2022 at 30%, it has now increased to 35%. But how are other areas performing? For example, we look at the gender. These in 2019, 2020, they performed well. Actually, in summary, other areas like the youth, other areas like children, they are doing well. But when it comes to persons with disabilities, the prioritization by ministries, departments, and agencies of government is not there. And that is the reason as to why we as NUDIPU, we are saying there is need for different ministries, departments, and agencies of government to prioritize disability inclusion in planning and budgeting to ensure that persons with disabilities are not left behind as per the overarching agenda for sustainable development goals theme.
Thank you so much. Our time is up, but of course we shall have to continue the discussion on our social media platforms. That's at Church of Uganda Family TV on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, as well as Church of Uganda Family TV on Twitter. We're sponsored by Protea Hotel by Marriott. Thank you so much. Have a good day.